Is this person going to kill me? Not really the first question you ask when you begin dating, yet it happens. Violence in relationships happens more often than we'd like to think. For most, it's a horrible surprise, the sudden shift in character, or physical assaults that start small, then escalate over time. We're going to look into a shocking case involving an Australian woman named Katherine. An abuser her entire life, she would eventually kill her lover and discard his body as a butcher discards an animal in a slaughterhouse. One of the most violent crimes to shake Australia and the world. Our victim, Mr. John Price, did see a violent fate ahead of him, but approached it anyway. His lover, Katherine, had a horrific history of dishing up domestic violence. She showed clear signs of abuse every step of the way in their relationship. But the love of his children ultimately made him stay. And it was this love that would ultimately lead to his death. This story comes with a warning, so please be aware that murder and sexual violence will be discussed. Hi, this is The Mysterious and Creepy. Welcome back. Let's start with the lead in this case, Katherine Knight. Katherine Knight grew up in a dysfunctional, abusive household. Her father was a violent drunk who would sexually assault her mother daily. Due to her treatment, Katherine's mother was a cold, emotionally distant figure who hated men. Once, when Katherine complained that she did not want to participate in a sexual activity, her mother told her to put up with it and stop complaining. Katherine claimed she was frequently sexually assaulted by several members of her family, though not by her father. This continued until she was 11. With little to no emotional support and incompetent guidance, Katherine grew up to be a disturbed and psychotic young woman. She was known to be a bully in school and often got into physical altercations with students and teachers alike. At age 15, she left school without the ability to either read or write. Katherine began working at a clothing factory as a cloth cutter. However, after a year of employment, she went on to work in what she described as her dream job, a butcher in a slaughterhouse. She was a diligent worker and was quickly promoted, and given her own personal set of butcher knives. Katherine grew quite fond of these knives, and slept with them hanging above her bed so that they would always be handy if she ever needed them. In 1974, Katherine married her first husband, David Kellett. David was Katherine's co-worker at the slaughterhouse and was close friends with her brother. On the day of their wedding, Katherine's mother allegedly gave Kellett some advice, stating, "You better watch this one or she'll bleeping kill you. Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing, and you're bleeped. Don't ever think of playing up on her, cheating on her. She'll bleeping kill you." Can you imagine being told this on your wedding day? From your new mother-in-law? Anyway, after that advice, later that night Katherine tried to strangle Kellett. She later explained she did it because he fell asleep after having intercourse only 3 times. Their marriage would continue a similar pattern of abuse and violence at the hands of Katherine. She was known to burn David's clothes and other personal belongings and would often physically assault him. One particular instance left him with a severely fractured skull. No charges were filed because Katherine promised to change her behavior. However, she never changed. After the birth of their first child, Melissa, in 1976, David left Katherine for another woman and moved to another state. The next day, Knight was seen pushing her new baby in a stroller down the street, violently throwing the stroller from side to side. She was admitted to St. Elmo's Hospital, where she was diagnosed with postnatal depression and spent several weeks in recovery. After her release, Knight placed 2-month-old Melissa on a railroad track shortly before a train was due. She then stole an axe, went into town, and threatened to kill several people. A vagrant known in the district as Old Ted found and rescued Melissa, only minutes before the train passed. Knight was arrested and again taken to St. Elmo's Hospital, but apparently she had recovered and was allowed to sign herself out the following day. A few days later, Katherine slashed a woman across the face with one of her butcher knives and demanded she take her to Queensland to find David Kellett. The woman escaped at a gas station. But by the time the police arrived, Katherine had already taken a young boy hostage at knife point. After being disarmed by the police, she was admitted into the Morissette Psychiatric Hospital. Katherine reportedly told the nurses she had planned to kill the mechanic who fixed Kellett's car, allowing him to leave. And then she planned on killing Kellett and his mother. In a strange twist, when police informed Kellett of the incident, he left his girlfriend and moved to Aberdeen with his mother to support Katherine and their daughter. By 1983, Katherine and Kellett had another daughter whom they named Natasha. The following year, Katherine left Kellett and returned to work in another slaughterhouse. But during this time, she injured her back and was forced to go on disability. She then obtained a government housing commission and moved back to Aberdeen. In 1986, Katherine met another David Saunders, who was a minor. A few months after they had started dating, he moved in with Katherine and her daughters, although he kept his own apartment in Scone. When Katherine would get jealous and become suspicious of Saunders' whereabouts, she would throw him out and he would move back to his own apartment. Katherine would inevitably follow him and beg him to come back. Once she slit his 2-month-old puppy's throat in front of him as a warning of what she'd do if he ever cheated on her. Then knocked him unconscious with a frying pan. For some reason, he stayed in a relationship with her, and then, in 1988, she gave birth to a third child, their daughter Sarah. They then bought a house together, which Knight decorated with animal skins, skulls, horns, rusty animal traps, leather jackets, old boots, machetes, rakes, and pitchforks. No space, including the ceilings, was left uncovered. Sounds like a really relaxing place to come home to after a hard day at work. One day after an argument, Katherine stabbed Saunders in the stomach with a pair of scissors. He then went into hiding. Katherine tried to find him, but no one admitted to knowing his whereabouts. Several months later, Saunders returned to see his daughter and found that Knight had gone to the police, telling the authorities she was afraid of Saunders. Ironically, they issued her an apprehended violence order against him. In 1997, Knight became pregnant again by former co-worker John Chillingworth, giving birth to a boy they named Eric. Their relationship lasted 3 years before she left him for a man she had been having an affair with and who would eventually become her victim, John Price. John Price was already the father of 3 children when he began his affair with Katherine. He was well liked by everyone who knew him. While his 2-year-old daughter had remained with his former wife, the 2 older children lived with him. Price was well aware of Knight's violent reputation when she moved into his house in 1995. His children liked her. His job offered them all a comfortable lifestyle, and, apart from violent arguments, at first, life was a bunch of roses. After an argument regarding his refusal to marry her, Knight videotaped items Price had allegedly stolen from work and sent the tape to his boss. Although the items were out-of-date medical kits that he had scavenged from the trash, Price was fired from the job he had held for 17 years. Price kicked Katherine out for what she'd done. For some reason, a few months later, Price rekindled the relationship, although he now refused to allow her to move in with him. The fighting then became even more frequent, and most of his friends would no longer have anything to do with him while they remained together. In early 2000, after 5 years of a tumultuous relationship, Katherine yet again assaulted Price, this time resulting in her stabbing him in the chest. Price kicked her out once again. He took out a restraining order against her in an attempt to keep her away from him and his children. Price reportedly told his co-workers that if he did not come to work the next day, it would be because Katherine had killed him. His friends tried to convince him not to go home, but Price was afraid that if he didn't, Katherine would harm his children. Price arrived home to find that Katherine had sent the children away for a sleepover at a friend's house, though she was nowhere to be found herself. He spent the evening with neighbors before returning home and going to bed around 11 p.m. Earlier that day, unbeknownst to him, Katherine had bought new black lingerie and had videotaped all her children while making comments, which have since been interpreted as a crude will. She later arrived at Price's house while he was sleeping and sat watching television for a few minutes before having a shower. She then woke Price, and they had sex, after which he fell asleep. The next morning, Price's neighbor became concerned that his car was still in the driveway. When he didn't show up for work, his boss sent some co-workers to check on him. Upon knocking on his bedroom window, they noticed blood on the floor and notified police. At 8 a.m., police arrived and broke down the door. What they found inside was a living nightmare. Katherine was unconscious on the floor beside Price's body. She had allegedly taken a large amount of pills. It was determined that she'd stabbed Price with a butcher knife while he was sleeping. According to blood evidence, he woke up and tried to turn the light on before attempting to escape, while Katherine chased him around the house. He managed to open the front door and get outside, but he either stumbled back inside or was dragged back into the hallway, where he finally died after bleeding out. After he was dead, Katherine went into town and withdrew $1,000 from his bank account at an ATM. The autopsy revealed Price had been stabbed 37 times in both his front and back areas. Many of the wounds compromised vital organs. Warning: please stop here if you are squeamish in any way. Several hours post-mortem, Katherine then, with great precision, skinned Price's body and hung the skin on meat hooks in the doorways. She proceeded to decapitate him, cooking parts of his body. Serving up the meat with vegetables in 2 settings at the dinner table, along with the name tags of Price's children beside each plate. Horrifically, she had planned to make the children eat their own father. A third meal was thrown on the back lawn for unknown reasons. It has been speculated that Knight had attempted to eat it but was unable to stomach it. Price's head was found in a pot with vegetables. Now, it doesn't stop there. Katherine had also arranged Price's body with the left arm draped over a large empty soft drink bottle with his legs crossed. This was claimed in court to be an act of defilement, demonstrating Katherine's contempt for Price. Knight had left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of Price, bloodstained and covered with small pieces of flesh. The accusations of abuse she referred to in the note were found to be baseless. Katherine's initial offer to plead guilty to manslaughter was rejected. When the trial began, Justice Barry O'Keefe offered the 60 jury prospects the option of being excused due to the nature of the photographic evidence. 5 accepted. Katherine originally pled not guilty to the murder of John Price, but the day after the jury was selected, she changed her plea to guilty. For this reason, the jury was dismissed. It was then discovered that Justice O'Keefe had been advised of the plea change the day before. He had adjourned the trial and ordered a psychiatric assessment overnight to determine if Katherine understood the consequences of a guilty plea and if she could be considered fit to make such a decision. Katherine's legal team had planned to defend her by claiming amnesia and dissociation, a claim supported by most psychiatrists, although they did consider her sane. 2 psychiatrists concluded that Katherine suffered from borderline personality disorder. Katherine still refused to accept responsibility for what she'd done. At her sentencing, her lawyers requested that she be excused to avoid hearing some of the facts, but the motion was denied. When Timothy Lyons took the stand and described the skinning and decapitation, Katherine became hysterical and had to be sedated. Justice O'Keefe declared that the nature of the crime and Katherine's lack of remorse required a severe penalty. He sentenced her to life in prison and ordered that her papers be marked, never to be released, a verdict never before imposed on a woman in Australian history. In June 2006, Katherine appealed the life sentence, claiming that a penalty of life in prison without possibility of parole was too severe for the killing. It was dismissed, with one of the justices who made the decision writing, "This was an appalling crime, almost beyond contemplation in a civilized society." Katherine Knight is still carrying out her sentence today at the Silverwater Women's Correctional Center in New South Wales. She is 66 years old. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.